Firefighters of Reddit, what was your worst that's totally arson moment when you got a call? This thread was made for me. My very first scene, the owners were acting super shady from the very beginning. They claimed that all of the clothes in their house, their pictures, and their TV had been stolen by the crackhead neighbors after the fire. In a terrible attempt to cover up the fact they'd moved all of their shit out before setting the house on fire. But the real kicker was the fireproof safe sitting open in the middle of the bedroom floor and the gas can sitting open in the master bedroom closet. Their alibi was buying a canoe approximately 2 hours away at 3 AM. The next was the guy who stood no further than 2 feet from me at all times and turned increasingly white as I found more areas of fire damage that were completely separate from the rest of the fires. He'd gotten drunk and set the house on fire in 5 separate areas. Then there was the guy who set his house on fire in 3 different areas. They were on 3 separate floors. Super nice guy. We were sitting and chatting. I started to take samples of all 3 areas and he looked at me and said, "Man, you've been super cool to me. I set this place on fire. I'm sorry." Then there was the lady who had a legitimate fire on the first floor a few weeks before. She used the insurance money to pay her cousin to do the repairs to the house. Predictably, he used that money to buy weed and vodka. So she decided to have herself another fire in the basement this time. 2 fires in the space of a few months. Red flag number 1. She got 16 bottles of acetone, 1,000 cotton balls, some latex gloves, and a torch. When I first got there, I went down in the basement and found the first area of major burning on top of a bench seat that had absolutely nothing on top of it. Red flag number 2. Unfortunately, the basement was full of about 15 inches of water, so I spent the next hour draining the basement. When it drained, I was able to open a cabinet that was full of burned newspapers. Red flag number 3. I then found all 16 bottles of acetone with the caps off. Red flag number 4. I then opened an upper cabinet and found 600 of those cotton balls spread out throughout the cabinet, and the smell of acetone nearly dropped me on the spot. Red flag number 5. I then opened the other cabinet right next to that and found a singed cotton ball sitting in a Coke bottle cap with a weird blue plastic around it. Turns out she had tried to do the old arson trick where you fill a latex glove full of gasoline and put it over a candle. Eventually the gas will leak through the latex and, boom, you have a good fire going. Well, she filled it with acetone, which does not eat through latex and only melted when the upper layer of smoke became too hot and melted the latex, which put out the cotton ball. Red flag number 6. I then found another latex glove tied off full of acetone. Red flag number 7. And then I talked to her. She was burned in the fire. The fire department found her in the backyard naked and screaming about a dragon. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to light acetone, but it doesn't burn like gasoline. It flashes, and if it flashes close enough to you it will light you on fire. Which it did. She told me the fire attacked her. Turns out she tried to light those 16 bottles of acetone and it flashed up and set her on fire. And that is red flag number 8. I'm sure there are others I'm forgetting. I had an apartment where the ex-boyfriend kicked in the back door and set the apartment on fire and spray painted FU blob on the door. Edit. Oh, I forgot about the guy who swore up and down he had no idea how the fire started, then told me when I was starting to dig through the bedroom that I would probably find a melted gas can because he knocked it over when he sneezed and the cigarette flew out of his mouth and ignited the gas. Which you might notice is not possible. Okay, I've posted this before, but it's so perfect here. Why I now look forward to being called to jury duty, condensed, because this took more than half day. It was 30 years ago and I still hope to see its like again. I'm on jury duty, we have to sit. Charges arson. Supposedly a farmer burned down his barn for insurance money. Prosecutor outlines the case. The farmer moved most of the stuff out of the barn into a second barn over a period of a week. A neighbor in a subdivision that backed up to the farm noticed the unusual activity, said neighbor being outdoors a lot building a deck on his vacation. Next, the neighbor saw the farmer walking slowly around the outside of the barn pouring something from a blue gas can on the lower part of the barn walls. Farmer goes out of sight to the front of the barn, and flames erupt all along the base of the barn. Neighbor calls 911, But by the time fire department arrives 5 minutes or so later, the barn is fully involved and they just act to contain, which is essentially just standing by as they note the nearby ground has been closely mowed, possibly to prevent spread. They note the smell of diesel fuel. Police collect the farmer and take him to station. Fire investigator says definitely arson. Insurance company says the barn was insured. Defendant's lawyer says essentially nothing. Prosecutor calls witnesses. Neighbor confirms that's what he saw. Firemen say flames spread with a rapidity that was out of place even in a wooden barn, and they smelled petroleum. Investigator says there were clear marks on the ground where accelerant burned, and it still smelled of fuel after the fire died down. Police fire investigators said there was virtually nothing in the burned barn, ruined tools or equipment, but that there was a good supply of items in the other barn that appeared to have been recently placed, including some that was sitting on grass that was still green underneath the box. No cross-examination. Defense calls the farmer, and first question asked is let's cut to the chase. Did you burn your barn down? Yup. Why did you do it? It was old and rotten, with termites going to fall down. Not safe. Hectometers. Have you always burned down old farm buildings? Yep, and my daddy did before me. It's a farm. Are you aware that you need a permit to burn debris in this county? Been doing it that way on this farm since we had dangerous engines. Never had no permit. The fine is up to $50. Oh, wait, I forgot, you are zoned active agriculture, and are exempt. So, no permit needed. But, why didn't you tell any of this to the police? They didn't ask till after they put handcuffs on me and took me to the police station. They told me anything I said would be used against me, and said I had the right to remain silent, and then some lawyer guy came in and told me I was going to prison for insurance fraud. I remember Perry Mason said don't talk to anyone but your lawyer. So I didn't. Did you file an insurance claim? What for? The barn wasn't worth anything in that state, and I moved all the stuff out. I suggested we try to talk them out of this. You said you wanted your day in court. What's up with that? They came on my land, arrested me without telling me what for. Told me later it was for arson and insurance fraud, and put that in the papers. All my friends, relatives, and neighbors know about this. They made me look dishonest. I want to make sure everyone knows the real facts. I figure this is better than them just dropping it, and everyone wondering whether they just decided not to send an old man to prison. Defense rests. Thank you for watching the video. Like and subscribe for more related content.